It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
And welcome back to another Real Estate Podcast, your largest real estate podcast library across Australia, as we talk your property from Cairns to Adelaide and every city in between, as we stream across another weekend on multiple platforms, including iHeartRadio, Spotify, and also Amazon. Yeah, the weekend is turned up a Saturday morning. It is April the 12th. And this is pretty interesting. It looks like Sydney vendors have finally got the memo about property prices needing to reflect today's market, not the highs of 2021 COVID boom. I know many agents, particularly in the Sydney market that we've spoken to, they have said it's very frustrating when listing a lot of these properties, because sellers have become now, after some time, more realistic, which marks a major shift from last year when many were still dreaming of these pandemic-era price tags. And now the sellers are meeting buyers at their price points. And we're seeing that sort of play out in some of the numbers. Now, according to fresh data from Domain, new home listings in Sydney jumped 33% between March 2024 and March of this year. And that flood of stock means that homes were sitting on the market for longer. Now, back in October of last year, houses took about 45 days to sell. Fast forward to March last month, that stretched out to 73 days. And as we say, that is the tail of the tape. Now, let's go to Sydney, catch up with Anthony Landau, the Managing Director and Mortgage Broker at Equilibria Finance. You've probably sort of had those conversations yourself with regard to some of those vendors and those high price tags in Sydney.
Yeah, g'day, Craig. Great to be here, and some interesting observations that do reflect what we are seeing. We're definitely seeing more parity between buyer and seller. We're absolutely seeing sellers now, I guess, come to the party round price. There is still an element of it being regionalised, though. Some of those higher priced markets are actually going backwards a little bit because of affordability, and we are seeing sellers still sit on their hands in a couple of those markets. But generally speaking, sellers have accepted those high price surges have slowed, and we are seeing a lot more parity in the market between buyers and sellers, which is a good thing because that market was out of control in 21.
Now, housing remains front and centre in Australia, and with the federal election on the horizon, the pressure is mounting. Housing affordability and the supply have become political hot potatoes, dominating headlines and campaign promises. So since we're going to have a little bit of a look at the politics around the real estate market, firstly, I've got to get your take on how you think the Trump tariffs potentially are going to impact our housing market in Australia.
That's a moving feast. In the last couple of days, Trump putting a pause on the tariffs, a 90-day pause. But fundamentally, a lot of money's come out of the stock market over the last week or so since all those tariffs have been announced. There's going to be people potentially with money to redeploy, potentially looking for maybe what they perceive as a safer haven through this time. That may bring some more money into the housing market. I don't think we're going to see a reaction like we do on the stock market, where we have sudden fluctuations in prices or people's decision making. I think it might more be investors looking at some safer haven or looking at property as an asset class if they've pulled their money out of the market.
Yeah, I mentioned just a couple of days ago when I was talking to Matthew there in Perth, it's interesting with the gold. You know, there's been a bit of a run on the gold since these trade tariffs, so that is another interesting point to watch. The current government, they have promised, we've talked about this before, to deliver the 1.2 million homes across 5 years. A very, very tall order here. It's always the ongoing question, is this likely to happen? Is there any movement on some of your comments from the past?
Look, there's no movement on my comment, and I think this is relevant because housing is probably one of the main issues in this upcoming election, and the shortage in housing. In short, the answer is no. We're going to be 200 to 400,000 houses short on that, 30-40% short, absolutely no chance. It was a big government announcement. They're not going to deliver. This is part of bringing housing front and centre. Young home buyers struggling to get into houses, unaffordability, record migration levels on all fronts is not making sense, and that's bringing housing front and centre in this election. And that policy, 1.2 million in 5 years, is not going to be delivered on.
Have you got many of your clients at the moment, just with regard to the election, saying, I'm not doing anything, I just want to wait until after the election?
Yeah, generally there is a little bit of a slowdown leading into an election. We've also obviously got the Easter break, school holidays coming up. That does bring a little bit of a lull in the market. I don't think it's going to have a big impact on the market. It might just be people wait and see a little bit. Whether that's a valid reason or not is debatable.
And when it comes to these political parties, they have outlined their housing policies. When we come back, we're going to have a look at that and also have a look at the latest news from the Greens and what they are saying they're going to do. We're back after this.
Every morning from 6 a.m, we bring you the latest real estate news with diverse perspectives from leading industry experts. We deliver the most property podcasts across Australia every week.
And the problem is that nobody in today's world is going to say anything to that person because people are always highly offended. We live in the world of being, oh, you've just offended me. How bad of you to say such a thing. So the person that is acting in that way, it will never actually come to their attention. But people, when they're watching it, they'll go, oh, look at that guy or look at that girl. And I have to say, not that many girls, it's mainly the guys.
Well, it's interesting because you don't see a lawyer putting up a social media post going, right, I sued this person, I got this done. It's not how they market themselves. Accountants don't do it. None of the professional industries utilize that as the way to gain and grow business because no one wants to watch it. If I was watching a lawyer sitting there telling me all these things, I wouldn't really want to engage with it. We're meant to be part of the community. These are people who are selling their home, so it's personal. It's not just a business transaction for them. It's the biggest transaction they'll make. They want to feel like they actually connect with you. So instead of thinking about what you want to tell them, you have to think about what do they want to know about you to feel comfortable enough to engage you.
From the emotion of property, the economic inflation, managing your expectations, lack of stock, price growth, construction appetite, days on the market. Stay informed with us and know your property.
And it is a Real Estate Saturday. Waking up around Australia, you might be having your breakfast before launching into one of these properties across your weekend to look at. Maybe you're going to an auction. Good luck with whichever way the chips fall for you. Now, we're talking politics with Anthony Landau this morning. Both parties, they have outlined their housing policies, Anthony. Step through what they cover perhaps this morning for us.
Let's look at it in simple terms. Let's split it into demand and supply. Housing affordability is the name of the game. From the demand side of it, both major parties have put first home buyers essentially front and centre. In terms of the incumbent, they've pushing their Help to Buy scheme and the expansion of that, trying to help 40,000 first home buyers through taking an equity position in their home. They're also looking at changes in how their student debts are assessed, which will help how much a first home buyer can borrow. The Coalition's looking at a more regulatory path, looking at reducing the APRA buffer rates from 3% down to maybe 1% for first home buyers, and also look at low deposit loans for first home buyers and how APRA risk weights those. The Coalition doesn't particularly like the Help to Buy scheme. I personally don't think it's a good idea either, having the government own part of your home. I think that's going to lead to problems down the track. So that's the demand side, big focus on first home buyers. The Coalition's also allowing first home buyers to access up to $50,000 of their super, and that seems to have been pretty well received. On the supply side, massive issue is governments getting involved trying to help with supply. Labor's sticking to its commitment with their $10 billion Housing Australia Future Fund. This was part of their campaign last time. It actually hasn't delivered a home as yet. They're sticking to that, aiming to deliver 30,000 new social and affordable homes. And the coalition's looking at a different approach, looking at $5 billion for housing infrastructure and greater private sector investment, which will assist in terms of opening up regional centres, then having the infrastructure for people to live in.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting about the stress testing for first home buyers from 3% down to 1%. I'm not sure whether the banks are going to like that, are they?
Look, I think it's certainly got to be a consideration, and it's not a bad idea. The banks are also pushing for some relief on the APRA buffer rate. The cash rate's now a lot higher than it was when the buffer rate was increased to 3%, and it's making assessment of loans at around about 9%, which is quite high. So I think there is some validity in decreasing the buffer rate to assist first home buyers. I think banks have an appetite for that. They're talking about it in different ways already. It'll be interesting to see how that may or may not play out.
Well, it's innovative, definitely for sure, as far as first home buyers are concerned. And if the banks are buying into that, even better. Let's talk about the Greens just to finish up this morning. Anthony, they've said that they want to change the rules around capital gains tax and negative gearing.
Yeah, this gets raised by the Greens at most elections. In fact, the Labor Party's even raised it from time to time. It's become front and centre again because of the potential, I guess, for a hung parliament where the Greens have a lot more say in policy outcomes. Neither of them are particularly good ideas. It's going to impact investors. It's going to impact mum and dad investors the most rather than the larger investors. Capital gains tax benefits and negative gearing benefits are one of the ways that assists families looking at buying an investment property. So the risk is it slows down investors in the market. That can drive up rents. That can impact and have unintended consequences across the market that may not be foreseen. So I don't think they're a good idea. The risk is if there's a hung parliament and the Greens use this as some sort of bargaining chip, it's become front and centre because of how the election campaign is running out. But no, I don't think they're a good idea.
All right, so there is plenty to be thinking about as far as the political side of the fence is concerned around real estate and property up and down Australia and the election getting very, very close. So thank you for all of that, Anthony. I'll let you skip off and grab your surfboard, probably out for a surf this morning. Catch you back in a couple of weeks' time.
No worries at all, Craig. Great to be here and enjoy your weekend, everybody.
Explore new property destinations where you could live with exclusive interviews covering real estate news and market insights.
I should ask you about those first-time home buyers and how difficult they're finding it at the moment in Canberra.
Yeah, first home buyers are quite a big portion of our marketplace, particularly at the moment. I am finding that first home buyers definitely have options. So our stock numbers are sitting slightly higher than what they once were. For instance, on average, we usually put 250 odd properties on the market every week, whereas last week we put on over 400. So there is quite a bit of stock for buyers to pick from.
You would recommend buying one block and doing something special with that?
You build it for about $1 million, potentially 1.2. It's cost you $2.5 million if you're following me. After that, you sell that brand new home after about a year or so of living in there, so hopefully you're not paying any CGT, and you've just made $1 million tax-free. You haven't had to go through council for plans and permits because it's only one dwelling. The build process is only taking you 6 to 12 months, and you've got your money within 18 months.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.